So with that, I am now delighted to introduce today's presenter. Beth Warren is the Manager of Strategic Partnerships for the Denver Public Library, and she works with internal and external stakeholders to connect community needs and responsive actions. Beth believes that listening to the community she serves is the most important part of her work and what makes the Denver Public Library and its staff trusted and respected in the community. And she has been involved in partnership development for more than 15 years with experience in the corporate, nonprofit, and government arenas. She has also successfully completed the Downtown Denver Leadership Program and the Colorado Business Community for the Arts Leadership Arts Program, and she is chair of the board of directors for the Colorado Photographic Arts Center. So, Beth, I am going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Christine, and welcome everyone. I am going to share my screen so we can get started. Hopefully everyone can see this now. Christine, can you see it? Okay, great. I'm going to make the assumption then that everybody can see where we're going here. So I'm going to start us off. I'm sorry, I am going to first make sure I can actually do what I said I was going to do. I'm going to start us off with a little bit of an addition to what Christine shared about me. Just wanted to say again, thank you for having me. I am the manager of strategic partnerships for the Denver Public Library in Denver, Colorado. I have been at DPL now for 8 years, and my role has at some point or another included partnerships, still does, community engagement, grant management, and volunteer services. Currently, I'm leading strategic partnerships, but with plans, I have plans for an additional staff member this year. I'm a solo project here. And also I lead volunteer services with an administrator and 2 interns who support that work. Just a quick snapshot about Denver Public Library and our partnerships. We have 143 organizational partners across our system. Seems like a lot, is a lot. They ran the gamut. Big, small, and in the middle. As I said, I'm the singular partnership staffer, but every division, subdivision, and even most of our departments are connected to partnership work in some way. So I may be the only person dedicated to partnerships, but I'm certainly not the only one who works on them. Wanted to share a quick session agenda. I'm not going to run through all the pieces here, but just wanted you to know what to be prepared for. We're going to go through some basics of partnerships, and then we are going to really talk through some models that we use here at the Denver Public Library. But before we get started, Christine, would it be possible to pull up our poll? I would love to see where everybody is coming from, what your role is in partnerships at your library. So if you could just take a second here and answer our poll, it'll just help me understand where everybody's coming from. Christine, I'm going to look to you to tell me when is a good time.
We're probably good. We have a 90% participation, so that's pretty
Wonderful.
good. And can you see the poll at all on your end?
I can't.
Okay.
If you would just share kind of where everybody's at, that would be great.
So it looks like the majority of people, about 52%, collaborate with partners or implement partnership activities at their library. The next largest is that they do some or all of the above at their library, and then pretty neck and neck between leading and managing partnerships for the library and not working with partners at the library, but would like to.
Okay, great. Well, then we have everybody covered in some way, shape, or form. That's great to know. Oh, great. There it is.
All right.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I like it. I fall in that 10% of leading or managing partnerships for my library, but it's really great to know that a lot of folks are kind of somewhere in the middle. And then some people are not working with them, but would like to. That's fantastic. a good place to start. So what I would like to do now is move us into kind of the basics, the building blocks here of partnership. So let's start with why partnerships are important to libraries. I think some of you will be very familiar with these, and some of you maybe haven't thought of it this way. So, libraries are often asked to do it all, fairly often asked to do it all. But I'm always considering with partnership work, should we be doing it all? Partnerships can really provide libraries with opportunities to enrich or expand our services without overextending capacity, which tends to be a problem. A lot of us are strapped, and so we want to make sure that we're preserving capacity where we can and still delivering. Partnerships can create shared resources and responses to community needs, can create avenues to reach new customers and communities, and partnerships allow each partner to do what it does best, using their unique skills, their expertise to serve community needs. That for me is the most critical piece, is doing what we do best. So in terms of setting ourselves up for success, and this is really across the board, whether you're leading this work, whether you aren't doing any of it at all, or whether you're somewhere in the middle, the building blocks of partnership are really thinking about what your library has already or needs to have to get going. The things I consider are, does your library have a vision, a mission, some core values? If you know what your library stands for and what its values are, it'll help you determine that partner alignment down the line. Things like, do you know and understand your community's needs? Have you asked your community what they need? Do you understand those needs? Can your library deliver, or is this an opportunity for partnership? And I will tell you, the spoiler is yes, usually it is. And then lastly, does your library have systems in place to manage partnerships? This is kind of a, do you have a tracking mechanism? Do you have any sort of way of tracking what you're doing and how things are working? It can be as simple as a spreadsheet or as complex as a customer relationship management system, but you need something that'll help you stay organized and responsive. So again, vision, mission, core values, understanding of community needs, a strategic plan. I'm sorry, I don't think that I actually said two of these. I jumped ahead. The strategic plan or annual plan, highlighting your library's priorities. If you have that, you already know what you're going to be working on. And then I'm very apologetic that I missed this one, which is enthusiastic staff. Are your staff bought into partnership? Do they want to work with partners? Are they interested? Yes, the slides should be advancing. Are they not? Oh, sorry, Christina, I can't hear you. Oh, they're not. Okay.
Okay, so I'm now seeing finding partners.
Yes, that is where we should be. Is everybody
Okay,
on that?
I am. Is everybody else
Okay.
seeing finding? Okay.
Okay, good. Whew, sorry about that. There's often user error when I'm doing this, so I apologize. I hope that these are in the right order. Please do let me know if finding your partners is not, if they're not advancing, and we'll work on that. So next up is finding your partners. This is true whether you're starting from scratch or trying to find new partners. You're going to want to start by identifying where needs and partnerships align. Where do you have relationships in the community? How do you know what your community needs? If you have a strategic plan, it was probably informed by community engagement efforts, maybe focus groups, maybe surveys, helping to determine what people want and need from their library and what kind of broader community needs are out there. But let's say you haven't done that work. How can you find out what community needs are not being met by your library and might need partnership support? I definitely don't want to go too deep into the weeds on community engagement. That's a whole other area of work. But what I've found is that library staff are pretty attuned to what's going on in their communities. So you can really start by determining where community issues align with library services, and then identify where you might be able to use a partner in the community to close a gap or enrich an offering. Meeting people and building relationships is really critical in finding these partners, finding long-term partners, even short-term partners. If you're starting from scratch, you may need to make some cold outreach. But you also may be able to leverage existing relationships and knowledge to reach out to organizations that seem like a reasonable fit for partnership. Again, library staff often know where and how to find these folks. So this tends to be the easier part, even if it's cold outreach. This is really kind of the critical space here, is just making those relationships or building those relationships. And then setting the stage. This is the matchmaking part of finding partners. I tend to think that my role falls into matchmaker quite often. I will meet with many organizations about our needs, but then I have to determine if our values are aligned in order to move forward with partnership. There's a lot of bad dating references I use, and I will spare you most of them, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you find that you are not aligned in any relationship. But you do have to try out some of those. You have to have those conversations and build relationships, even if it doesn't lead to a partnership. Another is, thinking about, do you have established relationships with presenters or maybe agencies who can fill gaps? Maybe they can help expand service delivery or enrich a program with unique skills or expertise. Those are really good places to start building partnerships, especially in relationships where it's not meant to be transactional. It is meant to be transformative. Many relationships are transactional. That's completely okay. Sometimes vendor relationships, those can be pretty transactional, but partnerships are almost always relational. The right partner really needs to be committed to a shared risk and shared reward setup, with the ultimate goal with both partners wanting to benefit library customers and community. My bad dating references aside, it really is a matchmaking venture when you're finding your partners, and making sure that everyone is on the same page. And then let's say we're at the stage of finding our partners where we've found someone we want to work with, and you're ready to get going on partnership work. Where do you need to start is setting the expectations for the partnership. You need to really ensure that you have the right people at the table, internally and with your partner. This looks different for every library. I would be careless to not acknowledge that I work for a very large urban library system, and this will look different for systems of different sizes, in different states, in different localities, with different community needs. But I think what goes across the board is needing to determine who needs to be at the table, which staff members and departments are important to the success of the partnership. And part of that is getting the buy-in for the partnership itself. If you're going to get the buy-in, you're going to involve these folks, from beginning to end, right? You're going to have them help you determine what a partnership looks like. As I mentioned earlier, we have a number of different departments and divisions and work groups involved in our partnerships, and it's imperative that we get their buy-in from the jump, really. Partnership work just very rarely includes two people, unless it's perhaps a very, very tiny library and a very tiny organization, which can happen. But it's important for me to always remember that if partnership work is expected to involve a staff member's service or a staff member's work plan, that they should be included in setting expectations for the partnership. So
Elizabeth, are we still
yes,
looking at the finding your partners slides?
yes,
Okay,
yes, we are.
thank you.
And we are just about to move to the next one. Did we move okay? Are we at setting expectations?
No, we're still at finding partners.
Why is this so slow? I don't understand it's just taking a really long time.
There we go.
Okay. So we're just on a delay. Sorry, everybody. Apparently my talking and my clicking are not working well together. I will pause for just a second, maybe between my slides. So I want to move us into setting expectations for partnerships. This is really the point at which you are prepared to develop a partnership plan. And I really highlight that this is the relationship talk part of this, because you really do need to be, as I mentioned, at the table with your partner to co-create a plan. It's really the best way to find success if you're both developing a plan that you feel confident about, that you feel comfortable with. where each partner is bringing resources and activities to the table. Each partner is agreeing to the terms set forth, and each partner knows the other is committed to the work. This is where you're going to be setting communication preferences and developing agreements if you choose to go that route. You're developing when you're going to check in with a partner. How are you going to communicate? What's the preferred style of communication? Things like how often should you check in? It feels like really redundant sometimes, but it's really important to set expectations within this partnership plan. Similarly, it's important to set not just expectations, but boundaries for your partnership. And I bring this up specifically because if you've developed a partnership without everyone kind of being at the table and discussing these communication styles and communication needs, you may have a partner who thinks it's okay to call you every day for a check-in when you thought it was okay to check in quarterly, and vice versa. So, I want to be sure that everyone also understands that setting those expectations and setting boundaries can help create not zero surprises, but fewer surprises and fewer misunderstandings. No amount of planning can prevent every possible misunderstanding, but if you're setting it up together, if you're setting up a partnership plan together, you really can develop a pretty good understanding of each other's needs and move forward that way. Last, everyone's favorite part, which setting expectations might lead you to some legal documents. Not for everyone, and certainly the majority of Denver Public Libraries partnerships have no legal fund documents associated with them. But for some complex partnerships, you might want to go the more formal route of developing an agreement or using a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU. Because the Denver Public Library is an independent city agency, we often will set up those MOUs to outline our partnership work. They're not legally binding. They do have a lot of legal language, but oftentimes these are set up for our really complex partnerships where there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of different work groups, a lot of different departments. It helps us all stay on track and have something to, really check in against. That said, we do not have that many of them, and that's mostly because we like to have a little bit more of a free-flowing partnership model where there's iteration, and it's not maybe quite as well or quite as strictly structured. There are really many ways to formalize a partnership. It can just be, frankly, a conversation, an outline of what you're going to do, as long as you feel comfortable that the library and the partner are working together, and that you feel comfortable with your communication and your plan set forth. It really doesn't require any one type of agreement to move forward. So I'm going to move to the next slide. I hope it comes with me. Maybe Christine, if you can give me a thumbs up when it changes to partnership challenges and benefits. Maybe.
Feel like we need the do.
I know. It just really, it wants you to think. Also, please, I'm not checking the chat as I'm speaking because I cannot hold those two things in my head at one time. But please do fill the chat with any questions, either that we can answer in the end or anything I don't get to, I'm happy to respond to via email if you would like, or hopefully we have time to get to everybody's question. But I certainly encourage you to add any questions in the mix or even have conversations based on what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we did have one comment in the chat saying that they would love to see sample plans if anyone would could share those. And if people wanted to contact me, if you had a plan that you were willing to share, I'd be happy to add that. But I don't know if that's something that you have in your session as Elizabeth. And we did make it to the slide.
Yes.
Oh, and we have one question. It seems like my organization uses the term partnership in different ways. Have you established a shared language in how you refer to different types or levels of partnerships?
Yes, that is a great question. And we have. So I'll give you a little bit of background on that. And then I will also be sharing with you our partnership guide, which is our framework for partnerships broadly here at Denver Public Library. And it goes through those different definitions, if you will. Because we have so many partnerships and different types of partnerships, we've broken it out into 5 different partnership types. I will say that that certainly doesn't answer all of the gray area questions, but we did break those up to kind of identify for folks what we mean when we say strategic partner, what we mean when we say supportive partner, and just everything in between. Partly that is because there are a lot of times when I am leading partnership work, but I don't need to be involved in all of the partnership details. Maybe it's a short-term partnership, which is typical of our supportive partnerships. And even some of our mutually supportive partnerships, which are more of our in-kind or reciprocal partnerships, information sharing, that kind of thing. It really, I think, helps our team better identify where they are in the lead and maybe need just some of my support and backing and tools, and where I am in the lead because I'm pulling in a number of different divisions or departments to a more complex partnership. So that's a little bit of a vague answer. I hope that the guide that I'm sharing will be helpful. We update it annually, and I share it as far and wide as I possibly can because I firmly believe in using all the resources at your disposal and not creating things from scratch if you don't need to. So I'll point that back out when we get to that slide. Thanks for that question. So I'm going to go through very quickly some just common partnership challenges and benefits. Many of you will be very familiar with these, and even if you're not, I think they're fairly easy to see in this work. The 3 most common challenges I see are unclear or misunderstood expectations. Again, just to reiterate, the communication is really key to successful partnerships, as is co-creating a plan. Because it just leads to that opportunity for things being unclear. If you have unclear expectations, people will sometimes fill in the gap or they'll do nothing. And then it can be really harder to rein in those challenges. The second being misaligned partnership activities. This is something that I find with myself and many others where we all like to say yes. Everybody wants to say yes. But sometimes we need to really most times actually, we need to step back and ask if the activities are really serving a need and if the partnership really is serving the community in the way that we want it to. And if it's not, then we need to either adjust. Maybe it's time to identify if the needs and the partnerships deliverables still connect, or not. Does the partnership need to be discontinued maybe? And that's kind of the third challenge. Is if the partnership is no longer serving you, then maybe it needs to be addressed. Maybe it needs to be discontinued. Maybe it needs to be adjusted. Maybe you just need a new iteration. Maybe it's just a pause. This is kind of the time where it's okay to break up. Again, apologies for my relationship analogies here, but it is okay to break up with a partner if it's not serving the needs that it was established to serve. I think also, this is where having an established plan of some sort in place really helps you to have that conversation, because you can work through what the plan was saying that you would do and where it's missing the mark. It's always good to reevaluate your partnerships throughout the year, throughout the term that you've set for them, because you may find that there are opportunities or that there are challenges and you need to address those. As far as benefits, which I firmly believe outweigh those challenges, I think the challenges are easier to address than they would seem on their face. But for benefits, I go back to everyone doing what they do best. Library staff are experts in a whole lot of things. We don't have to be experts in everything. If there is an organization that can provide needed expertise or skills or service, please engage them. Even if we can do it all, we probably shouldn't do it all. And really, we can focus on what we do best when we have a partner doing the things that they are best served to do. And at the end of it, community needs are being served in the most responsible way. Partners can fill service or budget gaps by working what I call through the library, right? So like the library is acting as the trusted space. It is acting as a convener. And then organizations that are providing partnership work can really use the library's spaces and places and people to do their work and to serve those community needs. And then the last benefit I'll talk about is, partners can really benefit us by building or strengthening community connections. They working with a partner can really help you build relationships with other community organizations. There's some real leverage in that, in working with a partner and making those connections to then their partners. If you've established a partnership framework that works well, then you can bring on those other partners as you see fit, as you identify additional needs and additional partners. It can be really, really great to use those relationships to continue building more, just kind of the concentric circles model, if you will. So that being said, it's good to be popular. But you also need those boundaries we talked about. So if you're confident that you know your community's needs and your library's mission and values, you'll be able to address that growth and approach it in the right way, where you're building where you need to build. You're really using those partnerships to build other partnerships as appropriate, not just as a constant ongoing more partners are better, because that's not always the case. So I realize that we are halfway in and I have given you a whole lot of information to digest. So I'm going to take a pause here, see if there are any questions, and then we're going to move into the adventure portion of the session. And I want to ask where we want to go. So first, let's see, are there any questions right now or comments right now before we dive into the adventure?
Not seeing any new questions. If anybody has something that you'd like to see addressed before we move forward, just pop it in chat.
And
Not
has
seeing
the
anything.
slide advanced?
The slide did advance, so
Wonderful.
yay. And I'm not seeing anything come through right now. If as we
Okay.
continue going, you guys have questions, pop them in chat and we will follow up in just a moment. So I think we can move forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. So now I'm attempting to take us to a more fun part of the session where we're going to talk about 4 different partnership examples alongside 4 similar but different adventure activities. So the adventures in partnership is really using what I have called adventure options to explore 4 different models that we use. So I'm going to ask Christine to provide another poll for us. I'm going to give you very little information. I just want you to choose which of the 4 adventure types you want to start with. And then we are going to take it from there. So whichever one you would like to start with, not knowing what it means.
And this time I'll be sure to share the results.
Thank you.
All right, we're getting close. We've got 84%.
Oh, wow.
87. Give a couple more seconds here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Oh, 90%.
What?
3 more people want to participate in the poll. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Ta-da! Hopefully you guys are seeing it now.
Oh, look at the hikers. That's great. I mean, it's my favorite too. So I'm going to do these in order, and I'm going to apologize to you now because I don't have a fancy way to move these ahead. So we're going to be skipping and then going back, but that's okay. We're not doing a whole lot of difference here. So we are going to start with what everyone said not everyone, I apologize, half of you said was where you wanted to start. So I'm going to go through and we are going to start with hiking. So hiking as our adventure.
We're not
Uh,
seeing hiking yet. Sorry.
oh no, it really hates me today. If this isn't reason enough to ask our team where I fall on the list for a new laptop, I don't know what is. I think if I can have you all back me up to our IT department
Yes.
to say that I need a new laptop, I would love it.
Okay. Yeah, we're still waiting. It's
Come on.
interesting. It's funny that your video's coming through clear and the slides are
Yeah.
not. That's a new one. There we go.
Oh my gosh. Wow. It really just wants to test me today. I've got a lot to cover. All right. Well, wonderful. So we're at hiking. So thinking about an adventure hike, what does it take? Well, it takes planning, but you can probably get there pretty easily. So we're thinking a day hike here, maybe some GPS. A hike is going to be light on gear, but it's going to be more strenuous than a walk. You'll need hiking shoes, water bottle, maybe some snacks, definitely sunscreen, especially for those of us here in Colorado. We know that sun is intense. It is more risk than something like walking because it's untested. Might be some scrambling, maybe some loose rocks, but mostly we're going to go on a trail that's well traversed. And we also need curiosity and a willingness to be a little uncomfortable. What are partnership snacks? Yes, please let me know what partnership snacks are. I'm just going to belabor all of these things. Um, and then, thinking about our hiking adventure, who would we want to hike with? Well, I would like to hike with a trusted collaborator, a friend you trust, someone you want to spend time with. Remember, you'll be working together to co-create this hike. It's not just a plug and play. You want a hiking buddy that understands your needs, maybe your capacity, and you also understand theirs. You want a hiking buddy who clearly articulates the plan, but is willing to deviate and assess if changes are necessary. And you want very yes, mine would be as well. And you want someone who brings the right gear, but not so much that it weighs you down. So we are talking about here. I did not bury the lead at all. We are talking about co-created partnerships, and you might be asking yourself, what in the world is that? I'm gonna see how long it takes us to get to the next. There we go. Okay, I'm seeing it go slow too. So co-created partnerships. What the heck do I mean when I say co-created partnerships? Well, this model is the newest to us. What we have as an example here is a co-created partnership that is between a museum and our library. Its purpose is to build on existing successes with co-created activities that meet specific community needs and measure their effectiveness. So it's a little bit bigger than you're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to connect and it's going to be good for the community. Little more going on here, perhaps. So like I said, this model is the newest to us, as in we just started using this model last year. And we opted to work with an existing partner, in this case, a museum here in Denver. And we created partnership activities that can be co-led and co-branded and measured for effectiveness, which is certainly more work than it would seem at the outset. Our first iteration of this was last year, and I'll just give you an example of one of the co-created activities. We co-created an excursion to the museum for our older adult audience. We wanted to provide an experience for older adults using an expert leader in their field. And the museum wanted to bring more older adults into or back into the museum. The museum hosted a curated wildlife hall exhibit for our group, which was well received by our participants and really encouraged them to return to the museum, as well as to our programming for older adults. In this instance, the co-created model worked because both partners were looking to build and engage the same audience. This was kind of the first piece of building something together where we were really truly co-creating. And with this success, we have built this partnership out to include even more co-created activities where we are engaging audiences with these co-created projects or activities in our Plaza program, and our Plaza program is for immigrant and refugee customers, and also through co-location of our libraries and the museum's mobile outreach teams. So we are showing up together. We'll be hosting activities in each other's spaces, using each organization's expertise, and adding on measurement and iteration as part of the model, really looking at what are we doing well, how are we doing it, and what do customers notice? What do they see as a benefit of this partnership? Or do they even recognize that it is a partnership? That's part of the co-branding of this model, is saying we want people to recognize that we are partnering. And that's very much new to us as well. This one, I'm very excited about its opportunities to include more partners in this sort of co-created style. As I mentioned in my hiking intro, this model is more structured. Things like defined outcomes, and requires more gear. So things like surveying folks. But it can also really tell us what works and what doesn't in a way that maybe some less structured models can't. This model doesn't require a formal agreement, but it does require an extensive outline of roles and responsibilities. So going back to that, do you want to have an agreement that's really structured or legally binding? Here, we really want to be able to iterate consistently. And so we want to have clear and concise roles and responsibilities as we're planning and as we're executing, because we want to know where we're going and what to do if conditions change, but we don't want it to be so structured that we don't have that flexibility. So if you're thinking about doing this kind of partnership, how would you go about setting it up? Number one is I would work with an existing partner if you can. You already have a relationship. It's really building on what you've done, maybe kind of thinking about things differently, but it's someone that you are comfortable with, that you've worked with before, that you have a good relationship with. And then determine what you want to create and measure. Are you looking for something completely new or just slightly different? For us, when we were thinking about the older adult services, we were looking for something different, but not completely new. We knew that this partnership could work because we knew we were both bringing expertise to the table, and that we were both bringing together a need to engage a particular audience. So you can start there as well. Engage other teams. You will definitely need support for this type of partnership if it covers more than one area of work in your library. For us, this partnership covers multiple departments, several programs. We have really built a model here that, while it started in kind of one area, has grown further and further out. And then last thing I'll say about this hiking adventure is sometimes you have to be comfortable with it being uncomfortable, and that's okay. I kind of live in that world of slight discomfort, right? So you know that things could change, but you also know that there's real potential here for the partnership to flourish. So that's the hike. You can go with or without dogs. I totally understand dogs being upset if they were not invited. I would invite my dogs. Invite your dogs. The second model I am going to take us through is actually going slightly backwards. And that is, if I can go backwards, oh no, sorry. Let's see, will it go for us? There we go.
Yay.
The second, yeah, I know, slightly faster maybe, I can't really tell. The second one is you chose walking, which is great. Walking is kind of the baseline of my partnership models here. This is where the majority of our partnerships live. So for walking, thinking about what it takes a plan, but you probably know roughly where you want to go and how to get there. An adventure walk, if you will, is light on gear and it's easy to get going. It's not too risky. You could encounter something unexpected, maybe bad weather, maybe you trip. But most of the time it's easy to adjust your walk. And you want it to be, you want to go for an enjoyable route. You want to get the outcomes you hoped for, or at least getting fresh air and movement. Who would you want to walk with? Someone trusted. someone you want to spend time with, maybe a partner you've already worked with, or one you know enough about to trust to deliver to your customers. This is going to be someone who is the organization, the partner or the organization, the person or the organization is aligned with what you're trying to do. You feel like you've got a good relationship before you even get into it, right? Or you've got the opportunity for one. You want a walk that is easy to set up and implement, and one that at the end you and your partner are satisfied with. You don't want to overthink it or overcomplicate it. And you can kind of go as often as you like, right? It's not terribly difficult to get moving and stay moving on the walk. So what does that mean? Mutually supportive partnership. And a mutually supportive partnership, maybe, there we go. Excuse me. Mutually supportive partnership can be a lot of things. And I listed a few examples because ours really do, the majority of our partnerships function in this model. So this model can include things like an in-kind partnership where a partner is providing a resource or service to expand or enhance something the library is doing, or it can be working together to deliver a program or service that better connects to customer needs. These partnerships should rely on each partner bringing that expertise and resources to the table without necessarily creating anything new, certainly nothing new for the sake of the partnership, right? These are not plug and play per se, but they are easier to define and implement and put into place, right? No one's being asked to necessarily do anything that they haven't done before or really change much. These are the partnerships you're probably the most familiar with. They're pretty common in libraries, they're common in cultural institutions. And I would say for the most part, that's where our partnerships lie, is partnerships with cultural institutions or other kind of similar nonprofit organizations. So instead of one specific example here, I'm going to give you a few. The few that I'm going to cover, number one is the Denver Public Library has a museum and cultural pass program. Probably many of your libraries do as well or have something similar. We've partnered with 15 mission-aligned organizations to provide free access to their institutions using our online booking system. These partnerships are really simple to set up. Each organization has its distinct roles and responsibilities. They're easy to implement and they're easy to continue so long as customers and partners are satisfied. So these are really the adventure that is a walk in the park, right? It's not to say that something couldn't go wrong, but they are very simple to set up, to implement, and to keep going so long as the satisfaction is there. Another example I'll give, and it's the picture that goes with this slide, or is in this slide, is from our older adult services team. This is a picture of our all ages choir. It started as it is a program of our older adult services team, but it does include all ages. It's a multi-generational choir. They had piloted as this all ages music group, but we didn't have a musician to lead the choir, someone who knew that work. So our group partnered with a local music instruction organization who provided in-kind staffing to lead the group, as well as space to perform, and additional kind of supports to build this group to where it needed to be. Additionally, what this did was build connections between the participants and the partner organization long-term. It was easy to set up and implement, and both organizations really did what they did best. This choir continues to this day. It's a few years old now and has really seen substantial growth. And so I think it really functions well for our organization and is a good example of a mutually supportive partnership where we support the organization and the organization supports us. So the other example that I'll give here is, I listed literacy organizations, but that really doesn't even cover it. Other examples of this partnership could also be local neighborhood organizations where you're sharing maybe space, resources, you're making connections, partnerships with specific groups with a connection to library work or to community work. That's where literacy organizations, maybe early learning organizations, school readiness, maybe healthy living or aging organizations, or, for our purposes too, immigrant and refugee service providers. So there's really a wide range here, but it comes down to who can you partner with for a community need where it's fairly easy to set up, there's a trusted relationship, and you, for the most part, know what you want to get and what you're going to get. I would never call any partnership overly simplistic, but these are the lowest risk partnerships that we have as far as a model goes. So, having now walked and hiked, we are going to go to trekking, which is essentially hiking, but it's harder hiking. Um, this this is where we start to get into perhaps a little bit more challenge. An adventure trek is going to include a more challenging path, might be delayed, slower to implement. Trekking can be slower sometimes because you have to go over obstacles. Maybe you have to rethink a route. It can require more gear, has potential for delays. You need to plan more. You probably need trekking poles, just a little bit more there, a little bit more on the guardrails, if you will. And because there's more planning involved, there's also higher risk. And you'll see at the bottom, I am talking about government agency partnerships. So I would be remiss if I didn't say the higher risk includes the B word of bureaucracy, but there's also higher reward. Trekking can get you to places you maybe couldn't get hiking. So when you think about who should trek with you, you want someone who is sturdy, someone who will collaborate on plan and execution. You want a buddy that understands the risks and opportunities of the trek and has that extra gear in case you forget something. If you've ever worked with a government agency, they have a lot of gear. And you could take that however you want, but there is often a lot of structure involved in working with a government agency. That's challenging, but also provides a lot of opportunity. And then you want a buddy who has quality insurance, just in case something happens on the trail. There's a lot of guardrails with a government agency partnership, so had to include that as well. So when you're talking about the government agency model, the example I wanted to show to you today was a partnership we had with a public health agency. And actually, it went beyond that because we worked with multiple city agencies during the early days of COVID vaccine rollout. And our purpose in this partnership was to provide vaccine clinics at our library locations to increase the uptake of those vaccines and improve health outcomes for our residents. And really, for us, government agency partnerships run the gamut. We're an independent agency of the city, so we work alongside city agencies all the time. We share a lot of information and resources, and we keep each other apprised of community needs. Our partnerships, though, with our government agencies really are geared toward delivering services to community members through the library. As I mentioned before, having the library act as a convener sometimes, as a community gathering place, and really building on the trust that we have with the community to deliver services that people need. Our COVID vaccines were mostly geared toward the public health agency side of the partnership, but we also worked alongside the mayor's office and the city's Department of Public Health and Environment. And then our key partner was here in this. This is a portion of our flyer for these partner vaccine clinics, and we worked with Denver Health. So this was probably the fastest partnership planning with the city agency because of the urgency of a pandemic. But we really spent considerable time and effort creating a plan and a process to ensure we had guardrails in place for health, safety, and public communications. It was really critical. This partnership had a lot of support and structure because we knew that it was important to deliver and be consistent and have our communication be incredibly precise. Just to give you a little of what happened, the partnership ended up spanning 2 years, and we offered 38 vaccine clinics across our locations, which resulted in more than 4,000 vaccines distributed at libraries. One of the other benefits, outside of those obvious outcomes, were that our partners in those city agencies were really able to build trust during a challenging time, as well as improving the outcomes for public health. And we were able to make connections with new and existing community members through this partnership. This partnership was set up with a distinct goal in mind, which most government agency partnerships are. They are, again, more calculated, more methodical. We want to definitely make sure we have well-developed roles and responsibilities and a defined communication plan. And of course, this one, like any good government partnership, has a legal agreement component to it. This time, an MOU, but sometimes these can have an interagency agreement, maybe a contract. We tend to not do contracts through our partnership work, but this was really an early one of our deliberate attempts to have a city agency partner to really deliver services to the community where they needed them most. And we've really grown our government agency partnerships over the last few years, working with agencies to provide digital navigation services at our public housing sites. We host some library programs at our rec centers during our branch renovation closures. And we also have bicycle repair kits from one of our agencies in our library of things to encourage some multimodal transportation around the city and serve a different need. So government agency partnerships are really critical to our work and I think can be beneficial in a lot of different areas, but they are more structured. They require more gear. They require more time in planning and execution. And the last area I'm going to take you is to the most strenuous of the models that I'm going to show, the adventures, and that's mountaineering. Mountaineering is something I had to look up because I thought it was essentially mountain climbing. It's not, it's close. But I think it aligns well with what I'm going to show you, which is grant partnerships. What does it take to do mountaineering? Detailed map, detailed plan that everyone can follow, specific gear for the task at hand. You will be traversing difficult terrain in a grant partnership, and you need gear that's built for the task at hand, along with all the other essentials in a walk, a hike, a trek. It is risky, but it has potential for big rewards. Complicated journey, maybe some unknowns, and significant time in planning and execution. And it also needs commitment and determination and an adventurous spirit. Reaching the summit in mountaineering is just the beginning. And who would you want to hike with? Probably a curious friend, someone who has the ability to think big and small. You want a mountaineering buddy who can develop the map and follow it precisely and who can adjust when conditions change. And you want a buddy who is adventure ready. They have the gear and the plan, and they just need your participation to make it complete. That is a grant partnership. We are moving into a much stronger space here in our organization, meaning that we are really looking for these opportunities, which we've really, this is a newer model for us as well. The grant partnership model brings together kind of a third leg of the stool here, which is the library, your partner, and a funder. So what's nice about this is that a grant partnership can really bring the funding piece to kind of level out a partnership that otherwise may not be available to you, just as a library working with a partner. The example I have here is a nonprofit food justice organization working with us. And our purpose was to connect grant-funded food box delivery to residents in need. This partnership, and frankly, the model grew out of an opportunity for us, something that we saw and said we need to address it. We had funding from the Healthy Food for Denver's Kids initiative, and we had actually contracted with the Grow House, who's our partner, and that's who's in this photo in the slide. They're a food justice organization. They were delivering boxes through our funding to 15 different libraries. And we worked really well with them. But as a library, we knew that our families needed food. We took the opportunity to get the grant. But we pretty quickly realized in doing this work that we weren't necessarily experts in food procurement or distribution. And those are two really critical pieces of delivering on the grant project. So when the renewal came up, we opted to work with the grow house, not as a vendor, but to have them actually act as the lead grantee, and we would be the partner. So we shifted and made that adjustment, knowing that, again, they could do what they did best and we could do what we did best. So developing this partnership, we had to develop a proposal for funding that clearly outlined the roles and responsibilities and specific project deliverables. It allowed both organizations to share risk and reward, but it also meant that there would be little to no disruption to the existing program. So customers wouldn't notice the difference, but both organizations would be doing what we did best. We would be connecting with customers and providing a trusted space for distribution, and the grow house was providing the same expert food service and delivery that they had been doing all along. This kind of partnership really requires both partners to collaborate on developing a strong proposal that fits the needs of each organization and that outlines clearly the grant necessary elements like the activities, the budget, how you're going to achieve your outcomes, and an evaluation plan. It's complex, like a mountaineering adventure, but it's easy to follow. There are built-in checkpoints to ensure successes and mitigate challenges. A grant partnership really requires strong and consistent collaboration through the entire period of the grant. You're required to assist with grant reporting. You're required to come together and address what the challenges are, what the successes were, some of the learning along the way. What's nice though about this partnership, it's backed by specific funding. And then with that, you can really test and try things, and it has the opportunity to grow and eventually become either self-sustaining by your organization or the other organization, or you can find other funding mechanisms. I will tell you, this has been one of the most exciting partnerships in my time here at DPL. The project is fabulous, but what I really like most about it is that it shows that funding opportunities can be a great way to deliver solutions to community challenges using a partner's specific skills and expertise and using the library's specific skills and expertise. So I would encourage anyone, if you're looking at a funding opportunity, specifically if it's one that highlights that they want to see partnerships, think about how you could partner with an organization to deliver. Think about where you have those relationships already and where you could use that relationship to build a plan together and hopefully get that funding and be able to deliver to your community what they need with the organizations best served to deliver. So I have spent a whole lot of time talking at you, and we only have a few minutes left. So I'm actually going to skip the next two slides because they will be part of what we share and they're really resource-based. And I want to skip to Ask Me Anything. And I realize I gave you so little time, but I want to pause here and let you ask me if there's anything that you want to know that we can cover in a few minutes.
And we know that people may have to step off. You might have desk schedules and things. We are still recording. So when the archive is posted, I will let you all know and you can view the question and answer. But Elizabeth Beth, I apologize. And I
Neither
can
one.
stay on for a few more minutes and get any
Yep.
questions answered that you guys might have. And you can either put it in chat or unmute. Do you have any advice for encouraging community partners to follow through with partnering?
This is an age-old question, and thank you for asking it. You know, I think that is it's a challenge, specifically, I think, in early relationships or in kind of, you know, if you're new to the relationship itself. And I would say, you know, the most practical thing for me in these situations is building that communication plan and using it kind of as the as your success measure. And I realize that it only works when two people are coming to the table. But I've found that if I remind people that we created this communication plan together, that tends to keep people a little bit more on the responsive timeline. The other thing is, I think if it's not working for you, I think it's perfectly reasonable to have the conversation to say this isn't working. And what can we do to either make it work better, or maybe we need to take a pause. I think that's perfectly okay. I know nobody wants to, have a partnership kind of go awry, but if they're not delivering, then it's not really much of a partnership anyway. So I think it can be challenging, but that would be my best bet, is to set those communication or sort of the expectations of your partnership early, or reset them, and then do those check-ins. And if you're still not seeing any improvement, then have the conversation about ending or pausing.
So this is a fun question. What has been your most unexpected partnership?
Ooh, the most unexpected partnership. Oh gosh, I feel like I should have been prepared for this. Oh, I'll tell you, the most unexpected partnership just popped into my brain. And unfortunately, we only did it one time, and that's okay. Sometimes it's just, they run their course. So don't be afraid to try one and move on. The most unexpected partnership recently is I set up a partnership with a ski area to provide passes for folks in a lottery system so that we could get people, a different kind of experience outside of the city. It went through our museum and cultural pass program, but it was unexpected because I certainly didn't expect the ski area to provide the level of free access that it did. It included everything from, the pass to rentals to bus transportation to the ski area to food and beverage vouchers. It was really kind of an all-inclusive opportunity. It was meant to be short term. I think we saw success out of it, but it was, oh, good. I'm glad you did. I'm sorry if you didn't get to go. It was very much like a point in time. And I hope we'll be able to do it in the future. But I think one of the things to think about is just, when we think about access, I think we do need to be open to many different possibilities. And that's not one I saw coming, but I really valued working with the ski area and their team on what we could do and what they were really looking for, which was opportunities to bring families specifically to the mountain to have an experience and to be able to enjoy it without the barriers that they know exist to skiing and snowboarding. So that was definitely unexpected. Getting a call to be like, hey, the ski area would like to partner with the library. And I started going, okay, let's see, how can we make this work? So pretty unexpected. Good question.
Any other comments or questions before we wrap up today?
I think, Christine, if I might, I'm just going to add one last thing here, since we don't have any questions coming in, which is, and I mentioned it before, use peer resources when and where and how you can. I did not create from scratch any of our framework, any of our, partnership models. I look to peer organizations constantly to see what's worked. I worked in nonprofits before my role here, and that helped inform some of the groups that I will look to. But I will tell you, there are a lot of libraries doing fantastic work in partnerships, and everyone is incredibly helpful when you reach out and say, hey, how did you do that? So I definitely, yes, I did. There is a slide when you get the slideshow that actually has our partnership guide in it. That is kind of our big, kind of a process document, if you will, to everything partnerships here. And I update it annually. But I would also look to ALA has a number of resources, a few that I've linked to. The Let's Move in Libraries group out of UNC Greensboro has some fantastic guides, as well as I would encourage you to, yes, there are some templates in our partnership guide for a roles and responsibilities document and an MOU, as well as a partnership outline. Oh, no, I removed that because I'm reworking that. But I would tell you too to look for at the I Partner with My Public Library Awards, the list of winners. And tooting my own horn, the Grow House partnership that we talked about as a model is one of the winners. We were very thrilled to receive that. But also look at some of the other projects They are very cool, and a lot of them can be adapted to serve all kinds of different communities. So you don't have to recreate the wheel. You can absolutely use what others are using as long as it fits your community's needs, your library's capacity, and you have partners that are willing and able to work with you to deliver. So use what you can.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for attending today, and especially those of you who were able to hang on a little bit longer as we got to some Q&A. Once again, the slides, the recorded archive of today's session, it will be added to the Libraries Learn website, and I will also email everybody who registered. And then I really want to thank Beth for she actually reached out to me to see about sharing some of this information, and I think it's great, especially with some of the templates and tools that Denver Public can share. So once again, thank you, and thank Denver Public for being able to join us today. Also, when you receive the email, there will be a brief survey about today's session, what you liked, what you thought we could improve on, and it will also include some information about how you can get a certificate if you need a certificate of attendance. So look for that in the next day or so. Reach out to me at the Colorado State Library if you don't see that email or if you have any additional questions. And with that, I wish everybody a really great rest of your afternoon. Thank you all.